What's going on, everybody? Welcome into... I'm going to hit the record button first. There we go. Now we're recording. All right. 3, 2, and 1. What's up, everybody? Welcome into this edition of Fantasy Chat. It is week 3 of the NFL season here in 2023. My name's TJ Weber. Welcome. I am the best. Thank you very much for tuning in. You can follow me everywhere at Weber. What was that, Nick? What'd you say?
Just shaking my head.
Everything's back to normal. The great Nick Yale, live from Dallas, Texas. Nick, how are you, sir?
Doing well. Terrible. Well, not well, actually. I'm doing terrible because I had Nick Chubb on my fantasy team, and he's done for the year.
Yeah,
so
that's
there goes my
tough, man. I mean, they didn't show the replay on ESPN. I did not see it on Twitter. It was kind of not my thing just to see the injury, but I heard when they don't even say what the knee injury was, it was pretty damn bad.
Significant is what it, and if you watch the replay, I do not recommend going on Twitter and watching the replay, but if you watch it, his knee pretty much just explodes. So
yeah.
Definitely a lot of frustrated Nick Chubb fantasy owners out there today.
Yeah, 100%. Well, Nick, overall, I mean, the feed looks good today. I like you got the ivy behind you as a Cardinal fan. I'm a little upset as a Cardinal fan. Why the ivy? Why was that the choice?
Well, we're just going for aesthetically pleasing set looks. We have a couple different sets here at the Bookit House, and so just going for something different. We like the grass wall. We were inspired by a few other podcasts that we like to watch, and so that's the reason for the ivy. Cardinals fans, you can say what you will about the ivy with Chicago, but speaking of Cardinals, shout out Adam Wainwright, 200 wins.
200 wins. Love to see it, Wayne. Thank you, sir, for that. I'm glad he did that. It's the only thing I've rooted for with the Cardinals, besides Mason Wynn and Jordan Walker for the last 30 days.
I know. Miserable. Probably the first year in our existence that we haven't been competitive as a team or making them close to even making the playoffs.
I know there's Oakland A's fans on the stream like, dude, fuck you guys. Like,
yeah,
you've been competitive for a long time. Like, and say whatever. We're used to being great, and it's hard when you finally aren't. We can kind of admit we're in rebuild mode a little bit.
Right. I know. That's how I feel. But nonetheless, let's get into some fantasy chat.
Fantasy chat. Yep, you guys
That's why we're here.
That is why we're here. It is football season. The Cardinals are 15 or a million games back. Who cares at this point? So we're talking fantasy football. Nick mentioned Nick Chubb. Hopefully we can, offer somebody that you could possibly pick up on waiver wires. Maybe not, because I think we're all at a loss with Nick Chubb out. But we'll talk about it all. You guys can also get involved. You can call in from the50.com. It's really easy, Nick. It's a really good website we set up. All the links are right there for you. It's not too complicated. The old websites try to do too much. I try to put the YouTube channel, the live stream, polls, all kinds of stuff. Guess what? All it is, you go to fromthe50.com. You can see a call button. You hit the button, and guess what? You're live with Nick and I right now, live on the show from St. Louis, from Dallas, Texas, all over the place. You can talk fantasy and let us know who screwed you over, how your fantasy team's doing, because Nick Chubb is not the only running back that is out. Obviously, he had the most significant injury, I believe, but Saquon Barkley also out for 3 weeks. I feel like he can never be healthy. I feel bad, too, because he bet on himself this year with a 1-year deal.
I know.
And here we are again. So am I missing anybody? Those are the main two.
Yeah, David Montgomery had a quad injury.
Yes, that's right.
Makers fantasy owners are obviously pissed as well. Because
Kyren Williams right here, baby. Picked him up last week.
Yeah, Kyren Williams. Hey, I actually traded for Kyren Williams and Jalen Warren both in my dynasty league. I traded DeAndre Hopkins for Jalen Warren and Kyren Williams, and that trade is looking fantastic for me right now. Two young running backs. Jalen Warren had a good night last night. Najee Harris, fantasy owners are absolutely pissed because Jalen Warren's going to be taking over that job by week 6 as well. So, I mean, between the shitty running backs and the running back injuries, like in this whole narrative on running backs in the offseason, there's a lot to discuss. There's a lot to look at when you're looking at the waiver wire this week for sure.
100%. I think the number one running back you got to look at for sure to replace Nick Chubb would have to be the backup for Cleveland, who is escaping me at the moment. Jerome Ford is his name. He got a lot of usage. I think Stefanski said going forward at the moment he's going to be the go-to guy. I did see reports saying that Kareem Hunt did meet with the Browns, so he could also be a nice kind of sneaker play, Nick, at some point where think about this. If you're like, 7, like if you're in a 12-team league and you're 7 below on the waiver wire, you're definitely not going to get Ford. But you have an opportunity if you kind of stash Kareem Hunt, he might be able to be a big-time acquisition for you,
Yeah, I mean, if you're looking at Jerome Ford, I mean, he's an Alabama guy. Jahmyr Gibbs, Alabama guy. Anytime you get an Alabama running back, like they're usually going to be pretty productive for you. in fantasy. They know what they're doing down there in Tuscaloosa. Very good at churning out NFL running backs, and he looked great last night after Nick Chubb went down. He got a bulk of those carries, and I think they'll probably stick with him as a replacement, for Nick Chubb's carries throughout the next, 4 to 5 to 6 weeks as we go on here into the season. But I think Kareem Hunt being brought in today, I would imagine that they will sign him back into basically his old role that he had last year, where he complimented Nick Chubb, and I think having been in Cleveland and knowing their offense with Stefanski, they're gonna probably make that move. And I think Kareem Hunt, like you're saying, who do you get if you don't get Jerome Ford? I think Kareem Hunt and the guy I mentioned a second ago, Jalen Warren in Pittsburgh early in the first half. So I think if you're looking at three guys, those are three guys in order that I have listed right now for my fantasy waiver wire acquisition to replace Nick Chubb. It's Ford 1, Warren 2, and then Hunt 3. I'm just banking that they're going to sign him here in the next day or so. I know he's visiting there with the team right now.
Yeah, obviously Kyren Williams, number one, if he's still available. I think
I wouldn't think he would be, but if he's there, definitely get him.
Yeah, Kyren Williams, I would imagine a lot of people with the number one waiver wire order right now would be able to kind of snag Kyren Williams. And I do believe, man, honestly, with the way that they're talking about getting rid of Cam Akers, I think he could be the guy this year where the Rams are supposed to suck, and they're moving the ball pretty good with a lot of no-names. Cooper Kupp, obviously on the IL, not sure if he's going to be able to come back after week 4 anyway. Like, there's a chance he could be out a lot, so I actually ended up trading him for Gibbs and Terry McLaurin. But I picked up Kyren Williams last week just to see if it would pan out, and dude, he's a great PPR running back.
That was great. Out of Vianney High School from St. Louis, he played at Notre Dame there and really has supplanted himself as the go-to guy in a stable of running backs in Los Angeles that I feel like he's never really used that position as much. They have the dominant wide receiver in Cooper Kupp. When Goff was there and Stafford both enjoyed using Higbee as their tight end.
Right.
He was there. They're definitely more of a passing offense. And I was shocked though. I said it before the season about Cam Akers, was high on him because he was the number one fantasy running back for the last 6 weeks of the season last year. And now he's just, for whatever reason, fallen off the face of the earth. And I don't know if it's an off the field issue or if it's something in the locker room.
Yeah,
or,
it's interesting though.
Maybe he just sucks now, production, because he was good at one point.
For a half of a season, and I get it, but it's
he was good, and then he got injured at the beginning of last season, and he was good again at the end of last season. So going into this year, I was like, a healthy Cam Akers, maybe they're going to utilize him more in that offense. And then Kyren Williams, for whatever reason, has just come in and kind of won over the job, which tends to happen, and now they're looking to trade Cam Akers. So if you're a Cam Akers fantasy owner, he's either throwing him on the bench for now to see where he gets traded, or just drop him entirely and go for somebody else.
100%. Yeah, if you guys want to get involved, you can text in here on TikTok. You can also call in from the50.com, from the50.com. Jump in on the conversation. You'll be live on the show with Nick and myself. You'll also be able to be on the podcast feed. You can find all our links online from the50.com. All right, let's get to some questions here on the TikTok chat. What should I do with Austin Eckler? That's from Espada. Nick, he is out for, I don't know if a significant amount of time, but enough time where fantasy owners might decide to kind of pull the plug on their chances this season because of Austin Eckler. So, would you trade him at a low value? I would imagine you can get probably a middle-tier wide receiver at the moment because he is injured. But would you kind of decide to kind of jump ship on Eckler right now?
Yeah, I wouldn't say jump ship quite yet. It's not really it doesn't really sound great that they say there's no timetable for his return. Anytime you hear that, that could end you in a Jonathan Taylor, Jamar Chase situation like last year where you just go in week over week and it's just still out, and you're just stuck with them on the bench. So, if you need to dump them, I would say, yeah, dump them. It's hard to tell, though. It's what are you getting? I think it's still too early in the season where his value is going to be too low. I think his value is going to be higher if you were just to stash him on your bench right now and just try to play the waiver wire early in the season with some of these guys we just talked about where, they're going to get a bulk of the carries. Zach Moss is another guy there in Indianapolis with JT out for another couple weeks that you could get to make do until you get a clearer answer on Eckler, because I think his value is only going to go up. And then if you're looking at a situation where you get into desperation mode, week 6, week 7, you need to start winning games. If you're losing, maybe that's when you trade them to a team that's looking to be a contender a little bit more and can kind of fill that position depending on what other roster situations you have if you have weak spots. I mean, again, you'd hate to make a move and then have another injury happen where you could have saved them and, filled a need elsewhere. So I would just say sit tight for now.
Yeah, I agree with you. He's such a good fantasy player in PPR, especially that if they said he was out 6+ weeks, then I would think about trading him, and you probably wouldn't get much value at that point.
Right.
So you are playing a dangerous game. If he re-aggravates that injury and you lose out on selling him kind of high right now, maybe you do try to think about that, what's best for your team. If your running backs suck, maybe think about trying to, I don't know. I think someone's trying to call me real quick. Hold on, Nick. Give a hot take. Give a hot take.
Yeah, no, I mean, I was gonna say, I think it just kind of depends on what your league mates are doing. If you can get somebody that's like looking to add him and wants to take Eckler off your hands, then maybe you go for it. If you can figure out a good trade where he brings good value to that team, it's just so many question marks with an injury right now. Like, you are gambling a little bit whether you trade him or don't trade him, because say you trade him away and then he comes back in 2 to 3 weeks, right? You miss out on that having one of the best fantasy running backs in PPR leagues on the table. And if you do decide to keep him and then he's out for longer, well, then his value decreases. So I think you're in a lose-lose situation a little bit either way, but it's really a gamble one way or the other whether you decide to deal him. I wouldn't deal him unless you can get a top wide receiver 1 or RB1 in that situation.
Yeah, agreed. I agree. Let's see. Colt says, I traded away Najee, Cooper, Godwin, and Thielen. I got Diggs, Jones, I'm guessing that's Aaron Jones, and Collins. What are your thoughts? So, to me, anytime you trade away Najee, I think Godwin is also a decent trade. I know the Bucs are playing good, but it's definitely Evans' team still. Cooper has definitely let me down so far. It's early. I don't really need him. He's like my third wide receiver, but I do like the trade. I think if you got Diggs, you got Aaron Jones right there, it's worth it. Nico Collins, big week last week.
Yeah, I think you're getting a lot of value. I don't really, I'm not really high on Nico Collins, but Stephon Diggs, obviously in the Bills offense, he's going to be explosive. That was my lock of the week, and that was an absolute right read there. With you when you get Josh Allen and Stephon Diggs, like, that's just going to be a matchup that you want to be a part of in your fantasy team. Stephon Diggs was one of the best wide receivers last year, and then you get Aaron Jones, who's a dependable guy, right? Like in a situation where you have a running back market that is up in the air with injuries, with guys not wanting to play, with just guys that you expect to be productive and then they're not. Like, Aaron Jones is the guy that's going to do his job week in, week out, and probably stay off the injury report as much as possible, barring something ridiculous. So I think that was probably a pretty good trade.
Yeah, that sounds pretty good. It's at this point in the season too, there's a lot of people that freak out way too easily about being 0-2. 0-2 is not 0-4. It's a different type of mentality. No. So, I think people try to like almost make Hail Mary trades at this point, and they try to. For sure. You can definitely get destroyed on trades if you freak out right now. Like, you can overreact and trade away your stars. Someone like Eckler, I don't think Kelsey is. I tried to trade for Kelsey today, Nick. See if you would have taken this. You ready? I was going to trade Miles Sanders, Michael Thomas, and Cole Kmet for Travis Kelsey. Now, the trade analyzer said that it was actually a pretty even trade. Even I was giving more value up, but they said no go. Oh, it's early. I'm not taking Kelsey, or I'm not giving away Kelsey.
No, I mean, if you're in a situation where you have Travis Kelsey on your roster, you should never trade him no matter what. There's not a scenario in football this year or any year where you should trade Travis Kelsey if he's on your team. Like, that's just not going to happen. And everybody's going to try to trade for Travis Kelsey. So
he's got a monopoly on a position. I mean, you can't.
Yeah, exactly. He's not a guy that you're going to get rid of. It's a guy everybody wants to try to trade for. So, I mean, I see the value, especially with Michael Thomas playing well and, Miles Sanders playing better. I think those are guys that, like, they're not going to win you fantasy leagues, but you're absolutely right about being 0-2. 0-2 is not 0-5, 0-6, 0-7. I was 0-7 one year, and I traded away Arian Foster when he was the number one player in fantasy and ended up winning the league, winning out for the league. I mean, the trade was crazy. It was like Arian Foster and Nate Washington for Antonio Gates, Marshawn Lynch, and Antonio Brown, all in like their heyday.
Holy cow! Yeah,
that's it was a haul of a trade, but like it ended up working out perfectly because that's like when Antonio Brown popped off and Antonio Gates popped off, so it worked out. But yeah, I mean, in that situation, don't freak out by being 0-2 right now when you could be in a much worse position in 4 weeks, especially making a knee-jerk reaction on your trades right now.
Yeah, 100%. I agree with you. I think it's time to kind of let the dust settle, get through at least week 4, and then decide, if you're 1-3, 0-4, I understand that for sure. You are listening to Fantasy Chat, brought to you by From the 50. You can check out all of our links, fromthe50.com. If you guys are new to the show, thank you for following here on TikTok. I know we got some new people jumping in the conversation. We're also live right now on YouTube. If you go to fromthe50.com, fromthe50.com, find all our links, including the YouTube page. We're live every Sunday from 10:30 a.m. CT all the way until kickoff. We talk fantasy. We talk shit to each other. We have picks. We have analysis. But the main part of the show, we always talk about this, and I sound like a broken record to everybody listening right now that's already listened. We make the show about the viewers. We're football fans just like everybody else. We don't take ourselves seriously, so you shouldn't either. You should come there for fun, for talking fantasy, for talking parlays, and know that you're talking to other sports fans. We happen to be in the media business. We kind of know how to settle this shit up. We're just the host, but we want the fans to also be the 6th host of the show, and we throw it around and have a great time. So you're not going to get that on ESPN. You're not going to get that on Fox. We're not those guys, but we're glad we're not those guys. So call in.
We're not those guys.
Absolutely. So call in
from
the 50.com.
We can cuss on this show.
Yeah, fuck you, Nick.
Fuck you too.
Yeah, there you go. Perfect.
Fuck your Lions for losing this week. And my Jaguars.
Don't even talk to me about that game.
Our bet's even, baby. Our bet's even. We're 1-1 right now. So
the Lions too. I had a feeling because they just made so many mistakes early, man. Well, and then they should have. I mean, they came all the way back off, played great.
What are we doing?
And guess what? You know what? I got a hot take for you. The fucking media screwed Jared Goff over. Okay, there you go. Because all week they said, "Oh, Goff hasn't thrown an interception in 400 pass attempts." Every day I saw that on NFL Network, on Twitter, on this and that. Shut the fuck up about it. And, of course, they cursed him, and he threw not just a pick, Nick.
No, y'all were cursed when C.J. Gardner-Johnson pulled the blue ski mask brigade out there, and the last guy standing in the blue ski mask was some 6th-round pick in the Seahawks locker room at the end of the game.
Well, all I got to say to all the media people out there that
C.J. Gardner-Johnson got hurt too.
I know, and St. Brown got banged up, and Montgomery got banged up. It was a tough game, and they ended up losing. Gibbs fantasy stuff, though, it's going to be massive, I will say. Not happy that Monty's out, but that's big for Gibbs owners, including myself. Gino's legit. I will say, though, to all the media people out there, keep my quarterback's name out your damn mouth. That's what I'll say, Nick. Just said it.
Dude, speaking of fantasy, I don't know if anybody in here is in a dynasty league, rookie dynasty league, where you only draft rookies every year. So my team was shitting the bed last year, and so I dumped Alvin Kamara, and I dumped Mike Evans and TJ Hawkinson this year, just like try to get younger because some of those guys are getting a little bit older. And I led the league in points last week. Like I had Geno, I had Justin Herbert. Like my team, I'm supposed to be tanking this year to be the number 1 overall pick to get Caleb Williams next year or Quinn Ewers, whichever my quarterback of choice is going to be. But I'm in a situation where like all my guys went off this week. Like Tyler Lockett went off, Jalen Warren, Raheem Mostert. Like my team is like made up of like a mishmash of FanDuel or DraftKings like daily fantasy lineup that was like perfect.
Yeah,
and like that's what hit. I was like, what the. And imagine
that is a bunch of randos though that hit. That's kind of wild, honestly.
Well, that was like Raheem Mostert popping off. You know, as like one of the best running backs in the league. Like,
yeah, what are the odds?
Quarterbacks that like were both top 5 quarterbacks in Geno and Justin Herbert this week.
It's crazy.
Damn it! Like, sometimes you're trying to lose, and
right, and then your team goes off, and like everybody's like pissed off at you because you're complaining about a good team. Like everybody's out there 0-2, and they had Aaron Rodgers, they had Nick Chubb, and you're sitting there arguing about having the best team in the league.
Yeah, it's a tough situation to be. I'm trying to tank though, so I can get the top draft pick.
Can you announce that? I feel like if your league is listening right now, you might get like a violation. You're not supposed to.
I mean, no, you can't. I would like to lose, but
yes.
You still have to field.
You're not throwing the game. Yeah,
I can get fine draft picks if like I was actually like benching, Justin Herbert and playing like Carson Wentz, just like in a quarterback spot. If you're like audibly like trying to lose,
it's pretty obvious if you do.
Yeah, the league can vote and you can lose draft picks for it, but
I've had
that's
guys.
Why again, like I won last week. I'm not like I wish I did not win, but I did win.
Right. Shut up, dude. Like all of us trying to get wins, like, dude, I fucking hate winning. It's the worst.
I know. In that league, I want to win my other league.
In that league, sure. The thing is, though, I'm a commissioner of our league. It's the worst job in America. It's just the worst. It really is, because all you do is people bitch about the payouts. They don't pay on time. Some people don't pay on time. They're like, "Oh, can you take it out of my winnings at the end of the year?" Like, okay, dude, like whatever. And then they just
I hate those
they
guys.
throw games at the end of the season. We have like brothers in the league that like trade. They not anymore, but when we were in high school, used to trade back and forth and like stack one team. Then everybody "What are you gonna do about this, TJ?" I go, I don't fucking care. I'm out of the playoffs too. Why do I have to do this shit?
You suspend those teams, and if they don't pay, if you ever have somebody that doesn't pay by league dues on time, like if it gets to playoffs, they're automatically eliminated.
I know, but we've had these guys for like it's been 15 years.
It doesn't matter.
I know.
Bye.
It is what it is. All right, let's get back to some comments. Marlon says, my wide receiver 1 is Tyreek Hill. My wide receiver 2 is Devontae Adams. Wow. My flex, Ridley, or I would say, is it Puka? It's Puka.
Puka Nacua?
You got to start Puka until he doesn't go off, right?
No, I would be the opposite. I would start Ridley. I know he didn't have a great week 2, but week 1 he looked great. And
says the Jags fan, though.
Yeah, it says the Jags fan, but they're playing in a weaker division. So if you're getting those matchups against, I'm a Jags fan. Don't even know who they're playing week 3 because I haven't looked at the the schedule yet. But
I forgot who the Lions are playing too. It's just it happens.
You're playing the AFC South against the Texans, the Titans, the Colts for the majority of your games. So like they just played the Chiefs. Like probably wouldn't have started Calvin Ridley last week, but to me, Calvin Ridley is one of those guys that's going to be, when he was playing in the league, was one of the best wide receivers. Puka Nacua, I mean, yeah, he's like the flashy new toy, but again, I think I mentioned this last week on Fantasy Chat or on the show on Sunday, was like you can't overreact on these like young guys that are just getting all this attention right away, because what tends to usually happen is you get a week where they're the breakout star and everyone's like, oh, waiver wire pickup, let's take him and start him, and the next week they don't do shit. And so I think this situation probably like Puka Nacua is going to be one of the more number 1, number 2 wide receivers on that Rams offense. So he probably has a little bit more stability. But again, I think you don't really trust a guy till week 3, week 4 of showing that repetition. And I think this situation is probably matchup based. So I'll just look at the matchup, who the Rams playing versus who the Jaguars are playing, and play the one with the better matchup.
Yeah, and that's the thing with Kyren Williams that I did this past week, was he went off in week 1. I let him sit on my bench for week 2 because, again, I wasn't, and you might disagree, but the way I was doing it was my top 2 running backs that I was going to start was Mixon and Gibbs. I wouldn't have started him over Mixon or Gibbs in week 2, and you can't say that now. I'm saying before week 2. And then flex, I ended up putting Miles Sanders in. It didn't matter. I had the win before Sanders played, but Kyren Williams was unproven still. Now he's done it 2 weeks in a row. Now I'm putting him in the starting lineup. You know what I'm saying? So
yeah, and that's fair. And to answer this question here, the Jaguars are at home minus 9.5 point favorites against Texans. I would start Calvin Ridley in that situation over Puka Nacua, who goes on the road against the 0-2 Cincinnati Bengals on Monday night. So a little bit more hype around that game. Like a game Cincinnati is absolutely going to go out and win because they need to.
Right.
And so that situation there, I would definitely start Calvin Ridley.
Flock Rams says he had 15 catches against the Niners. Stop it, bro. He didn't have 15 catches, did he? 15 catches?
15 catches?
I don't know if he had 15. Either way, the reason being is you weren't sure what Cam Akers was going to do. This just like, we just figured this stuff out about Cam Akers, like literally, like, I don't know if it was before the game or like right before the game. Anyway, he's unproven. Like now he's getting there where he's proven he's the number 2 running back right now in fantasy. So I'm for sure going to start him. I mean, you have to take a chance. And now that Akers is not even remotely close to playing, I don't even know who the backup for the Rams is at this point. He's an automatic start. But, like, that's the reason I didn't do it. I mean, there's a good reason why I didn't. Now he's for sure an automatic start until he doesn't go off, pretty much.
Yeah, there's probably, like, I think in that situation, again, it is matchup based, and he did go for 15 catches for 147 yards. So he had a great week.
Like, I know he went off. I didn't think it was 15 catches. That's awesome.
He did have a big week, but again, I look at that. I go matchup based more than anything, and I think Calvin Ridley in this situation is going to have a better matchup than Puka Nacua is against the Bengals. There, so that would be even with Puka Nacua going off, I would still start Calvin Ridley over him.
Let's see. Joey says start 2. K9, is that who am I thinking of? Is that the guy from the Seahawks? Why can I not think of his name right now? Kenneth Walker. That's got to be Kenneth Walker, right? Okay.
Yes.
Kenneth Walker. I never heard him called Canine before. Kenneth Walker, Gibbs, Kyren Williams start 2, Nick. I would definitely go Gibbs and Kyren, and that's not just because they're on my team, but I would pick those 2.
I would probably go Gibbs and Kenneth Walker because, again, I think Kenneth Walker is a little bit more proven than Kyren Williams is at this point. I think right now that's still the situation you're going with Kyren Williams being the again, like I just said, the flashy new toy. I see at some point there's probably going to be a regression game, but Kenneth Walker to me is going to be a guy that I definitely want to start. And Jahmyr Gibbs is definitely you're going to want to start him.
Especially now that Montgomery's out. He was already to me an automatic start in PPR. He's a must start now. Absolutely, at least RB2. He might be an RB1 for some people. What are your thoughts on Jacobs, Kupp, and Eckler? That's from Matthew. So is Jacobs hurt? I haven't paid attention. I know Kupp obviously on the IR. He might
Jacobs got banged up. Yep.
Okay. Eckler is going to be out. I think they said 2 to 3 weeks. Kupp is supposed to be back week 5. Who knows? He could be out longer. I traded him. I wasn't sure. Jacobs, I don't have any idea. So
yeah,
what would you hang on to out of those 3? I think, in my opinion, I would probably rank. I would hold on to Kupp, then Eckler. I mean, Jacobs isn't even in the conversation, but with those 2, I think I'd rather keep Kupp than trade away Kupp. I did trade him away because I had a chance to get Gibbs and I had a lot of receivers, but I don't know. Who do you think has, I guess, a better opportunity to come back from injury quicker? And
I mean, that's so hard to say. Like, you don't know. I mean, we're such a question mark on all these guys. Like, I think you keep Jacobs. I don't think he's that. I think he may have gotten banged up in the game, but I don't think he's injured. Between Eckler and Kupp, if I'm choosing one of those 2, I'm probably. I mean, it's hard to say. I'm probably keeping Kupp just because if I have Jacobs at running back already, I'll take Kupp at wide receiver. But until you know a better timetable on what Eckler's injuries looks like, I think it's hard to really decipher between those 2 because Eckler is still one of the best proven fantasy players out there.
Yeah, and I decided to get rid of Kupp because I got Gibbs, but also because there's something about him lately with getting re-injured. I feel like I'm a little worried because, I mean, now that the Rams have a few more weapons like Kyren Williams stepping up, Puka stepping up, Kupp's still going to be like Stafford's go-to guy, where I think the overusage with the hamstring injury could be a problem. That's just that's the only reason I did it. And I think getting Terry McLaurin, I got a lot of like middle tier receivers. Like I got St. Brown and they got a lot of middle tier receivers, but I went for it on running backs and I'm fucking set on running backs.
Yeah, so, that's what you have to do. I mean, I think especially when you get deeper in the season, like running back is one of the most injury prone positions as we're seeing from the past week. So and it's also one that's not as deep as wide receivers where you can go out and get a guy like a Rashid Shaheed or, Nico Collins, like some of these guys that are lower down on the either on the waiver wire or just like WR3s on their team, but they get, some playing time. Whereas like running backs, like your top 2 running backs go down. I mean, when you get to week 6, week 7 of the season, there is absolutely crumbs on the waiver wire for running backs. Because a lot of times people just use waiver wire pickups, waiver wire claims anyway for just handcuff running backs, like guys like Jaylen Warren, where they're a clear number 2 right now, but you might get in a perfect situation where a guy goes down. But that's just something you kind of have to watch when you're making those calls earlier on in the season.
Yeah, and I could get lucky where, right now, I mean, I have Gibbs, Mixon, Miles Sanders, and Kyren Williams. So,
I would trade one of those.
So that's what I'm saying. I'm hoping Sanders can kind of go off. He's been kind of quiet, so he's going to be on my bench. If he can go off, and I can package like a him and a Michael Thomas for like a decent tight end. Like I don't even know who's number 2 tight end right now. Andrews? I have no clue.
I mean, you got Mark Andrews, you got TJ Hawkinson,
there you go.
You got Darren Waller.
Yeah. I can't think of any. They're all kind of. I mean, Kelsey's still going to be the standout, but anyway, you know what I mean. Like trying to find kind of either a top tight end or even a better receiver and try to package some of those guys because that's a good thing. I took a flyer on Jamal Williams. He hasn't done shit, but I don't really need him either. I'm thinking about dropping him actually at this point. He's out next week, I think, already with another injury. So, but that's what you got to do in fantasy too. You got to take risks. You got to make trades. If your league sucks like mine does sometimes, where like everybody just puts like an absolute fucking wall up and you can't get any trades, it kind of makes the league shitty, which like I'm glad people are starting to do that again because I think we've played so long together that people don't trust each other.
For sure.
They think they're getting fleeced even though like on paper it looks good for both sides. Like, oh, this is bullshit. It's like, just read the fucking trade. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, I mean that. Well, that's what you're right. It is no fun playing the league where no one wants to trade but I mean, you also got guys in leagues that like I got a trade offer today, and it was like Michael Pittman for Kenneth Walker. I'm like, no.
What kind
I'm
of
not like, oh, well, you need like a wide receiver. I'm like, I don't. I got like 5 wide receivers, and I had Nick Chubb just go down last night. The
right,
fuck are you talking about? Like, you have
right.
people that are absolutely clueless dumbasses, and
Or they
that
just
trying to
try to like
trade
see
me.
if you're not paying attention. Which like if you played long enough, like we've all tried to fleece people with trades. I do it
Yeah,
all the
like
time.
you
Like
could try to place me, like me, the guy that plays in the dynasty league that like knows every player in the league. Like, yeah,
right,
good luck, good bit.
right. Yeah, people. I do it sometimes too. I'm like, oh, he's for sure gonna accept this, and like
Well, that's
it's
the thing. You almost, if you're making a trade, if you're trying to acquire a guy, you almost have to give them something more because everyone's in the same position. We're like, oh, you're getting the better value and you want my player. So you really, if you want to make like a blockbuster trade or make a big trade, you almost have to give up. Like that's why the guy earlier was talking. I think he gave up 4 players for 2.
mm-hmm.
Like you almost have to give up a little bit more to try to get the guy that you want.
Yeah, I agree. Shout out to my buddy, by the way, in the league. Multiple times, not this season, but in previous seasons, he has tried to trade me somebody that I decline, and right when I decline, he puts him on the waiver wire. He's such an asshole. It's a smart move if I go for it.
Yeah, everybody just wants to dump their shit off their bench and then to like create roster spots. Like, oh yeah, if I give you 5 players, like that equals 1. Like, no, if you give me 5 shit players, what am I gonna do with 5 shit players? 4 of them are gonna sit on the bench. Maybe I start one for a few weeks. Like, no.
Yeah, ain't happening. Ain't happening. Call in from the50.com, from the50.com. Hit the call button, and you're in the conversation with Nick and myself. Phone lines are open, so call in right now from the50.com. Let's answer your fantasy questions. We've got a lot of them in the chat, Nick. Let's just kind of go rapid fire here. Brody said, I traded Mahomes for Kyren and Tyler Lockett. I have Cousins. It's kind of bold. I mean, you're banking on he traded Mahomes for Kyren Williams and Tyler Lockett. He has Kirk Cousins.
Traded Mahomes for Kyren. I mean,
that's pretty risky. I mean, Mahomes is going to come back. He's been quiet, but he will pick it back up.
Yeah, that's a classic example of kind of overreaction. I think. I mean, Kirk Cousins is a fine quarterback in any league where you're trying to trade. Like use one of your quarterbacks like as trade bait. I think is kind of suspect, but I would never see a situation where you should trade Patrick Mahomes.
Yes, I agree with you.
In fantasy football. Like he's going to be better than Kirk Cousins like long term.
That is a perfect example of somebody flipping Kyren perfectly though. And now if he's a number 1 running back, you're going to hate to lose him, but that is a perfect example of the guy that just picked him up.
I like the guy that's on the other end of that trade, unfortunately.
Yes. Yeah. Which I tried to do that today with Kelsey. Or no, I'm not letting him go even yet, but I'm thinking about it. Like it would take a Kelsey and Mahomes, like a game-changing type of guy.
And that's the thing, though, too. Tyler Lockett's a guy where, like, Tyler Lockett has never had a year where he wasn't a top 10 wide receiver, and Tyler Lockett is a guy that kind of goes under the radar, especially in an offense that features Smith and Jigba and DK Metcalf. Like, but Tyler Lockett's still the guy that's putting up the fantasy points. He's kind of like the I'm trying to think of who another really like good, just like underrated player normally is, but they're really good at fantasy.
Yeah.
Like as a fantasy player, like there are guys like that, and Tyler Lockett is certainly one of them.
Yeah, 100%. It's all about the PPR stuff's massive. It's just you can have a guy that gets 50 yards a game, but if he gets 8 receptions, I mean that is fucking solid.
You want that volume over. You want that volume over the one big play, which again Tyler Lockett kind of is, but Adam Thielen's a guy who's been seeing tons of volume, right? Like especially last night with the Panthers game, the Panthers Saints game. I don't know how many targets he had and how many receptions he had, but he was getting a lot of the action early on from Bryce Young.
Yeah, the NFC South's going to be crowded. It's a weird division. Are there 3-2-0 teams? Are the Falcons 2-0 too?
Falcons beat the Packers.
Panthers and Saints definitely are.
Yeah.
No. Sorry, the Bucks. The Bucks are 2-0.
Bucks are 2-0.
Who's not? Oh, obviously the Panthers lost. It's Saints, Bucks, and Falcons are all 2-0.
I believe all 3 of those teams are 2-0. Yeah,
that's crazy. What a division.
Yeah, I mean, that is not what I was expecting going into the year with Derek Carr, Bryce Young, Baker Mayfield, and Desmond Ridder at quarterback.
Baker's kind of balling out. I'll be honest. I didn't expect it.
He really is. I hate to say it, but he's figuring it out for himself.
Paul says, flex non-PPR start 2, Raheem Mostert, Kyren Williams. He spelled it Kyren Williams. That's awesome.
Nice.
And I'm on Ross St. Brown. St. Brown, 100% start. Never doubt that.
Yeah, I think St. Brown and Mostert are your two there.
I don't trust. Here's what I'll say: the Rams have nothing else at running back, so I think Kyren's an automatic start.
Well, what do the Miami Dolphins have at running back?
That's true, but they have so many more weapons on offense. Like the Rams don't have. I mean, Puka's had a couple good weeks. They are more limited.
But think
on
about it.
People.
Miami's gonna move the ball more than the Rams are against the Bengals defense. So I think who's Miami playing this week? Let's go check that out.
That's a good question. We haven't done our picks yet. That's why I'm not sure. But if Nick and I are in different spots, St. Brown's an automatic start if he's healthy. I know he's got a little banged up. He should be fine. For
Miami
next week.
home against the Broncos. The struggling 0-2 Broncos. Yeah, give me Raheem. I mean, that's a tough defense, though. The Broncos defense is kind of stout.
I just think Kyren's again, there's more to that offense with Miami than the Rams don't have much. Kyren's kind of Stafford's safety blanket. I kind of like Kyren Williams. And you can't disagree that the way he's played the first 2 weeks, you got to give him a shot now. I mean, he's been productive.
You do, I guess. I think, he's going to probably get, like you're saying, volume carries is what you get from Kyren Williams. And I think you do with Raheem Mostert, too, because I think the backup running backs in Miami are banged up. But
and 15 points just off receptions is pretty sick.
Right.
I'm not saying he'll do that again, but
Kyren's going to get the ball. So that's like one thing you got to go off of, like what he's going to do with that against Cincinnati on the road on Monday night. Not sure. Whereas Raheem Mostert probably has a more favorable matchup at home. But again, that's one you kind of got to make a gut check call. If I'm gut checking, I'm probably going Raheem Mostert, but I could see the play in Kyren too.
If you guys want to call in, weberbets.com/call usually, but also from the50.com, from the50.com, hit the call button. Also, this is Fantasy Chat. Nick and I are live. Usually every Tuesday is the plan. We might go Mondays every once in a while, but we got Fantasy Chat Tuesdays. If you missed any of the show, you can check us out on YouTube as well.
For sure.
It'll be. I think Tuesday's the perfect day.
Because Monday we have Monday Night Football, and we stream Monday Night Football here at the house. So
yeah, I think Tuesdays are the day, especially right before waiver wire pickups and everything. It's kind of perfect. So if you missed any of the show and you're enjoying the conversation, go follow our YouTube page from the50.com. You can find all of our links and also our podcast feed. Nick and I will be doing the show every Tuesday live, but also recorded. Find all that content, and also make sure you check out Weber Wednesdays with Big Web and myself live from the studio here tomorrow night. We mainly talk about the spreads. We talk about our parlays, stuff like that. Get you ready for week 3, and we do that every single Wednesday. And then our Sunday live show from 10:30 a.m. CT all the way up until kickoff. Hit the follow button everywhere. Appreciate you guys tuning in. All right, let's see. Should I trade Puka for Stevenson and Tutu full PPR? That's from D Forge.
Yeah, I would. I would trade him. I don't really see much value in Tutu right now, but
I'm sorry. I know Tutu Atwell. Who does he play for? Is it the Rams?
Rams, yeah.
Okay, I've heard his name. I don't know who the fuck he is at all.
Yeah, Tutu Atwell is the other wide receiver on the Rams, but again, I think that one kind of probably depends on what the rest of your running back / wide receiver situation looks like. I think Ramondre Stevenson's a great RB1, RB2 option there. He was the guy that I mentioned preseason that won a lot of fantasy leagues down the stretch last year, and I think that's a guy in a Bill Belichick system there that's going to be, with the Patriots, where he's going to be a volume carrier. You always have those other guys, like you have Zeke Elliott there as well, but I think Ramondre as a PPR receiving back and dual rushing back, like he's going to get a lot of the action still around the goal line, so I like Ramondre a lot.
Let's see. Should I trade Waddle for Puka? That's from Henry. I don't think so. Not yet.
Trade Waddle for Puka.
Straight up, that seemed a little aggressive.
Yeah, early. Again, I think that's where we talk about like knee-jerk week 2 reactions. Like everyone's kind of eyes are getting wide about a 15-catch, 147-yard game last week against a tough Niners D. So I think you see the value of Puka like long-term there. But again, I need to see more. As bad as that sounds, like I need to see more from him before I'm making a decision one way or the other on keeping him or trying to trade for him, especially when you have a guy like Jalen Waddle who is in a powerhouse offense. That's one of the best 1-2 punches, probably the best 1-2 punch wide receiver combo in the league.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. This is an interesting question Mike says, what should I do if I have both Puka Nacua and Kupp in full PPR? Should I trade one? Now, obviously, Cooper Kupp out for at least 2 more weeks, this week and through week 4. Nick, if I had to say you take the guy who's going off and who's healthy and you try to get a shit ton of value out of Kupp, that's what I would recommend. I don't know what you think. I don't think you can have both of them on your team.
I mean, in a weird gamble, I'm kind of the opposite. I'm kind of saying sit on Cooper Kupp and then go back and get, trade a guy who, again, we don't know enough to know if he's going to be like that all season long. He could fade out. He could get injured, of course. So trade him while the value is high. I think you're going to get more for Nacua right now than you would for Cooper Kupp. And then Cooper Kupp comes back. He becomes the guy again. All of a sudden, Nacua is
I just got a weird feeling he's going to be out longer than 4 weeks. I don't know why.
Maybe. But again, it depends on the situation. Are you 2-0? Are you 1-1? Are you 0-2? Where are you sitting? What does the rest of your team look like? It's hard to make those. There's a lot more variables, I think, that go into it when you're trying to make those decisions. I think it's an interesting problem to have, and I think you do need to get rid of one of them because having players on the same team, you're never starting Cooper Kupp and Puka Nacua at the same time. Maybe one in the flex, one at the wide receiver spot, but you're just kind of limiting yourself there. One is going to go off, and maybe one goes off if one has a good game, but you're kind of limiting and handcuffing yourself because if one does well, the other one's not going to do well. So you have to trade one. I get that, but I right now might try to trade Nacua for something better.
And what I agree with that, with his value could not be higher. I don't think he can continue this pace for the entire season, especially if Kupp comes back. I will say this, maybe wait on the trades where if you can wait for Kupp to come back, at that point you can decide who to trade. And I know what the worry is that you'd lose the value on Puka Nacua at that point. So it's an interesting game. You got to make a decision, though, because if you do sit on both of them and Nacua ends up just kind of getting lost because Cooper Kupp's getting all the targets again, then he kind of lost that value. So you got to decide what you want to do. But it might not hurt if you have other receivers to put in there to kind of stash Kupp on the bench for a while until he's not injured anymore and keep Puka Nacua on your team, obviously, just to see what he can do, if he can pick up and do what he's been doing the last 2 weeks. And then decide once Kupp comes back on who's going to be your keeper. Because, again, Kupp could get re-injured. We hope it doesn't happen, but he's been doing that a lot the last 2 years.
Yeah, and I think it's a situation here really going to be able to tell by the Cincinnati game, both for Nacua and for Kyren Williams, what is going to happen with these players. Because Cincinnati is going to be the best defense that they face, on the road here. I think for as far as secondaries go for Puka Nacua, that's what I'm looking at right now. Cincinnati has a tougher secondary than Seattle or San Francisco does. And then they have Indy, Philly, Arizona, Pittsburgh, but then they get into the Dallas, Green Bay bye week situation. So this next week is really going to tell, I think, for Nacua and Kyren Williams, what their value looks like long-term. And that's where, again, do you trade them right now? Do you wait another week? I say wait another week, but that's going to be kind of interesting to see how it plays out because he's had 2 great weeks so far. 15 targets for 10 receptions and 119, and then 20 targets last week for 15 receptions.
20 targets.
He's getting 20 targets.
That's insane.
No touchdowns yet, but 20 targets.
20 targets a game is fucking nuts.
That's volume, and he's catching 75% of those. So
it's pretty damn good. This is Fantasy Chat brought to you by From the 50 from the50.com. Go check out all of our links. Call in. You can hit the call button. Follow myself at Weber Bets on all socials. Again, we're live every single Tuesday for Fantasy Chat. Live on Wednesdays, myself and Big Web for Weber Wednesdays. And then, of course, our Sunday live show, 10:30 a.m. CT all the way up until kickoff. Hit the follow button here on TikTok. Appreciate you guys tuning in. And you can also listen to the full show on the podcast feed on Apple Podcasts and also on YouTube. All links on FromThe50.com. Nick, what's your at? Is it at Nick Yale or Nick
at Nick Yale? Yeah, at Nick Yale on Twitter is where you can typically find me.
Okay, YAHL. See, it's funny because I always plug, I'm a big TikTok and Instagram guy. Sure. I'm not a big Twitter guy. I'm on Twitter. I read shit, but I just don't tweet. I'm not a good tweeter, Nick, or what do you call it? X. It's called X now, whatever the fuck.
Yeah, it's called X, yeah.
Sorry. Couldn't be sorrier about it. But,
yeah, and I'm not real big on TikTok. I mean, I manage a bunch of TikTokers, and I'm on Instagram too, but I only use it really for personal shit. So Twitter is where you can find me, at Nick Yale, YAHL.
There you go. The Book It Sports fam doing pretty good in old Dallas, man. Doing good
Hell
shit.
Yeah, man.
Gotta love it. Let's see. George says Dak, Evans, Kamara for Chase and Watson. Wide receivers are Hill, Olave, Collins, London, and running backs are Cook and Algier. There's a lot to digest there. Hold on. Dak, Mike Evans, Alvin Kamara for, I guess that's Jamar Chase. Already a great trade. And Deshaun Watson, I believe. He's already got Tyreek Hill, Olave, Collins, London, and he's got, I'm guessing that's James Cook and Tyler Algier. That's a pretty damn good trade to me.
Yeah, I mean, I would definitely make that trade. Kamara is not coming back for a little bit. You got Dak, who again, in this new West Coast Mike McCarthy offense, I think they're not really opening him up as much. They are trying to limit his turnovers. I can definitely tell that. I was at the game on Sunday, and he's definitely doing game management more. But, Deshaun, I think, is going to have more fun, more upside as like a flashy quarterback that's going to make big plays. And, he didn't look great last night, but looked okay. So if you're starting Deshaun at quarterback and getting Jamar Chase in return, you got Jamar Chase and Tyreek Hill in the same, and Chris Olave, right there, that's your two wide receivers in your flex. Running back looks a little thin. Maybe you even flip Jamar Chase again and try to go get a running back is probably what I would do in that situation.
I don't think he has Chase, though. I think he's trading for Chase.
Well, no, I'm saying if you're making that trade, though, if you're getting Chase in that trade, I might then go back and flip him because, again, Kamara and Dak, I'm fine with leaving with getting Watson. So then you would have Watson, Tyreek Hill, and Olave. And then if you can flip Jamar Chase, bump James Cook down to your flex position and get a better running back there, then, you're in a little bit better situation. Because I think you can probably upgrade your running back over Kamara. I think Dak and Watson is fine. And then you have the wide receivers already. So you can get a little bit better through maybe one or two trades there than you would by just hanging on to Kamara, who's still going to miss a couple weeks, and then who knows what he's going to do when he comes back.
Nick says CMC for Smith, Goddard, Collins, Cook, Algier. Jesus, like the guy's whole team. Is that
Smith, Goddard, Collins?
Which Smith,
Cook.
though? Is that Geno Smith? Is that Devontae Smith? I mean, it's a lot of players you're getting.
Who are they trading away?
CMC. McCaffrey.
I wouldn't do it. I think that's a situation where, if you have CMC, unless your team is really bad and CMC is your only good player, Algier is one of those guys that I think people are overestimating on right now, and teams that have Tyler Algier are trying to dump him because he had a good week. Where Bijan's going to be that guy. Bijan, he's going to be good because he's going to get carries because they can't work Bijan the entire time,
right?
Because their team sucks. Because for being 2-0, Desmond Ridder is probably quarterback number 32 in the league because he cannot throw the ball to his wide receivers or his franchise tight end at all. And so, they're going to work the run game a hell of a lot more, and Bijan can't do it all himself. So Algier's going to get those carries, especially around the goal line. He's been getting the Jamal Williams type player, but am I going to rely on Tyler Algier to score me a touchdown, as an RB2?
Definitely not.
I don't want that. Goddard, again, who's the other tight end you have, right? Unless your team really sucks, I would keep CMC.
Yeah, I think, and that's a trade right there where you're just kind of throwing all your garbage, not garbage players, but all your bench guys to let's go get McCaffrey and then I'll figure out the rest. That's what that guy's doing.
That's what I'm saying. It's that's someone unloading their bench to try to fill one position. Where if you're on the receiving end of five guys, unless you're starting three of them, fuck no.
Right. If they all average 9 points, it doesn't do shit for you. You know what I mean? It's still going to make your team terrible.
CMC getting 20, 21 points in a week, that's worth two starters. So
Agreed.
At least, unless two starters are going to plug in and give you at least 14 points apiece, I would keep CMC.
Yeah, it's one of those things where it looks good on paper because you're getting a lot of players, but if they're not value players, it's just a waste. I don't know. It doesn't make sense to me because, again, you have to get – that's where I understand trades like I tried to do today. My best player I was giving up was Miles Sanders and Michael Thomas, two big question marks for Travis Kelce. Yeah, but I'm going to try. I mean, if someone's going to do it, fuck.
You're going to try. You're going to throw the trade out there, and you're going to try to make that trade, but,
no one's going to take it that's played before, usually.
You kind of win and lose your league in the draft and then on injuries. You're going to have
for sure. Yeah.
Unless you want to trade away your the best situation you can possibly do is in a trade wise is probably trade away your superstar and get 2 players that are good value
Yep.
in return to like fill your needs or give you depth on a team. Like you're never really going to package a bunch of guys together to go get one player because it's going to leave you vulnerable in other areas, and you're not going to be able to, do you really want to result on like Christian McCaffrey? Like I know he's trading him away in this situation, but do you really want to trade all your guys for Christian McCaffrey just for him to get injured and miss 6 weeks? Like,
yeah,
no.
Is it really worth it? Because that's kind of what I did. You got to also find those waiver wire pickups like 2 weeks before they're good. And take a shot. Like for me, the big waiver wire guy that I actually thought was a decent pickup was Deuce Vaughn. I knew he was like super, like wasn't getting much usage, like really was gonna, but he's gonna be the backup now in Dallas. I think he is. And I just, who knows if Pollard gets hurt? He was great in the preseason, so I stashed him away. Then I got lucky. I was like 5th or 6th down on the list 2 weeks ago and got Kyren Williams because he had a good first week.
That's a good grab.
Before the Akers thing even broke, so that was massive.
That's huge. I mean, I know Nakua and the Rams guys were the big gets last week, and I actually stashed Zach Moss last week, and then he ended up being the starter this week, and now is going to be looking like the starter going forward. So that was a nice snag by me. I mean, that's where right now you got to look at like again Kareem Hunt. I mentioned Jaylen Warren earlier. Like I think that's a guy that like could win the job later down the line if Najee doesn't keep performing. You're definitely right though. You have to play the waiver wire, and you have to play it a week or 2 ahead of time because, if you're even number 3, 4 on the waiver claim, you're not going to get whatever the only 2 guys that mean a damn for
you got to gamble a little bit. You got to get a little lucky.
Yeah,
and you got to gamble and take shots, and that's the same thing with the trade market. Now you got to draft well. That's the main part of the thing, but you got to take chances on the waiver wire. If you sit back and you have a mediocre team, you're just like, well, I drafted shitty, so there goes. I'm just done for the year. Well, then you're not a great fantasy player. You got to try to at least improve your team.
There's not really like past there's drafting depth and stuff like that, but like you got to be able to. You don't know that Nakua is going to be the guy, right? In Los Angeles, you don't know that Kyren Williams, who is probably borderline 3rd on the depth chart, is going to jump to be the starter by week 2. Like you don't, those are things you can't really account for when you draft. So you just kind of have to draft a good team, pray for no injuries, and then make a good couple decisions on the waiver wire, and then hopefully make one trade, and that's how you win your league.
And that's kind of where you want to have, if you're going to have a shitty week, you want to have the shittiest week in week 1 because there's always one or 2 standout players that are like hidden that you can just, if you're number 1 on the waiver wire, you don't get them.
You want to start poor and then make your run at the end.
Yep. Yeah, for you, starting 0-7 that you did and winning out is insane.
That was nuts. I won out. I think it was like what 13? No, how many weeks was that after that? Like 10 or 11 weeks, winning out after that.
Yeah,
I think
that's crazy. It'd be well, you go through week 13. That's what we do.
I think it was 13. I think it was 13 weeks because you go through.
Our league stops weeks. Well, now it's 17. It was 16. We don't do the last week of the season because they sit everybody.
Right.
So that we
stop. It could have been
0-5.
Yeah, I don't know what it was. It was like 12 weeks in a row. I won like 12-0, and
that's
then
freaking nuts.
The fucking Arian Foster. I won on the last play of the regular season. Like that's how I won my league.
That's sick.
I won by 0.05 from second to first on a Matt Ryan to Tony Gonzalez slant for 15 yards to end the game.
Yeah. It's a beautiful game, fantasy football. Yeah. It's a beautiful game.
It really is.
Bryce, let's go through a few more, and then we'll wrap it up. Bryce says Chase, Debo, and Njoku for Hawkinson, Keenan Allen, and Chris Godwin. Now, I mean, you're trading away a lot. Wait a minute.
Chase,
Jamar Chase.
Debo.
Jamar Chase alone, Hawkinson and Keenan Allen, those are your top. That's I don't like that already. And plus, Nick, I think Debo is going to come back. I think he's had a really bad start.
What's the trade one more time?
He's given away Chase and Debo and Njoku for Hawkinson, Keenan Allen, and Chris Godwin. That's not good.
Chase, Debo, and Njoku. So I like Hawkinson over Njoku. I like Chase over Allen. So then it comes down to Debo.
Chris Godwin. Yeah,
it's kind of an even trade.
I think Chase. Cincinnati just had a slow start, but Chase is better than all of those players, not combined. But I
think Njoku is serviceable enough at tight end where Jamar Chase and Debo are going to give you probably more upside than Keenan Allen and who was the other one? Keenan Allen and Godwin are.
Yeah.
I would keep. I would stay. Yeah, Chase and Debo you want to keep because again I think you're right. Ayuk has been the guy through 2 weeks, but then Debo definitely will make a make a comeback to where he has a few good weeks.
That's the thing too is
same thing with Chase.
I think people are now. Here's what I'll say: if you have Chase, hang on to Chase. If you can get Chase from an owner that's 0-2 that's freaking out right now, fucking go get him. Cincinnati will bounce back, and even if they don't bounce back and make a massive run, which I still think they're going to make the playoffs, he's still going to have value. Like he will, as long as he's healthy, obviously he will be a great fantasy receiver. So there's another question. People are trying to trade their stars, and this is where you take advantage if you want them. Justin says trade offer. I would be sending Puka, Rashad White, and Josh Allen for Josh Jacobs, Jamar, and I believe that's Kirk Cousins. I mean, dude, if you can get Jamar now and you're sending a guy you picked up on the waiver wire, that's massive.
You're trading away Puka, Josh Allen,
and Rashad White,
who I hate. I hate Rashad White, so I would do that trade. Yeah, because then you get, what was the return? Kirk Cousins, Jamar
Chase, and Josh Jacobs. That's a great trade.
Ooh, yeah, for sure. If you
Very
can get that
trade.
that's a good situation of trading Puka high and getting rid of, a guy in Rashad White who I don't really like as a running back down there in Tampa, and you get Josh Jacobs, who, even though I think he's going to have a dip more of a down year than last year, he was insane last year, so it's kind of hard for him to meet those numbers again. But I do think Josh Jacobs' volume is going to be a little bit better in an offense where I think Jimmy G's ultimately going to struggle like he did a little bit in Buffalo this weekend, whereas Baker is looking rock solid with his wide receivers and Chris Godwin and Mike Evans down there in Tampa. So I think the Raiders run the ball more, so that's a little bit of an upgrade. Probably downgrade a little bit at quarterback between Josh Allen and Kirk Cousins, but I think Kirk Cousins is still fine as a fantasy quarterback.
Yeah, I mean, getting Jamar Chase right now is just a monster pickup. This is the time where you don't freak out if you're a Chase owner, but if you're able to pick him up, like I said, and you can give up not much there, that's worth it to me.
Yeah, I think that's a little bit more. You're a little bit more secure in your team than maybe otherwise if you had Rashad White and Nakua.
Yeah, agreed. All right, TJ has a question, and no, this is not me talking in third person. He's actually named TJ.
Nice.
Do I trade Jordan Addison for JT? JT coming back after week 4. I think he wants to impress for, I don't know if he's going to be with the Colts for a long time, but Jordan Addison, to me, I mean, JT's worth that trade to me.
Yeah, I think you trade for him because Jordan Addison is still number 2 there in Minnesota. Justin Jefferson's is going to be the guy, and even though Jordan Addison I love as a rookie, especially in dynasty leagues, I think JT's a guy that's going to come back and he's going to be healthy, ready to go. Hasn't played for 4 weeks, without any real injury, and so I think he's going to be a guy that unlike last year where he kind of got injured, banged up, wasn't really great. I think this time he's going to come back kind of like Saquon did, where he's pissed off, ready to play.
Yeah, agreed. All right, few more. Half-point PPR. Do I trade Kyren Williams and Keenan Allen for Derrick Henry and A.J. Brown? Ooh, this is interesting.
That's juicy. I mean, Derrick Henry and A.J. Brown are guys kind of like Jamar Chase, where it's, they may not be great, as they were in previous years, but they're still going to be top guys. Like, you still get an A.J. Brown in a Philly offense that's going to figure it out, that he's going to get the ball, he's going to figure it out with Jalen. Derrick Henry's, again, by proxy of the team sucking, he's going to get volume carries. Kyren, again, you talked about earlier, we're not really sure what we're going to get out of him yet. Couple good weeks, but yeah, I think I'd probably make that trade.
Yeah, any PPR league, I think Kyren Williams is like gold right now. I mean, especially as many targets as he's getting in 15 receptions. I don't know why. He's on my team. I didn't even realize he got 15 receptions last week. But I understand, trying to get Derrick Henry, understanding what Nick and I have been talking about. If Kyren is not a 2-week bust, but if he's not going to be like that all season. But I would kind of hold off. I mean, A.J. Brown is also, that's a great receiver to pick up right now. Keenan Allen's always, he's always getting hurt all the time, so it's not a bad trade. I could see you going either way, but if I was you, I would hang on to Kyren Williams. For some reason, if you look at the Rams roster and look at their running backs, I don't think he's going anywhere anytime soon. So I think I would hold on to Kyren and see what happens. All right, a couple more, Nick, and then we'll wrap this one up. Thank you guys for listening in. Again, we're live every Tuesday here on Fantasy Chat, brought to you by From the 50, from the50.com. Follow me at Weber Bets everywhere on social media. Follow Nick on Twitter, or X as it's called now, at Nick Yale. It's YAHL, not Yale as in the school, Yale. All right, correct. John says, trade Diggs and Warren for Tyreek. I have Kyren, Saquon, Mixon, Ridley, Pittman, and DJ Moore. Holy shit, his running backs are freaking set. I would do that. Diggs and Warren for Tyreek. I mean, Tyreek's number one receiver. That makes sense.
Yeah, probably. I think I would do that. I think I'd rather have Tyreek than Diggs.
Do I trade Puka or keep him even after Kupp comes back from Matthew? We already mentioned that. Nick and I have different opinions. Mm-hmm. He thinks you should try to trade Puka and keep Kupp. I think you should keep them both and see what Kupp does when he comes back and then decide. You might lose value on Puka, but I think I would do that just in case Kupp gets re-injured. So let's see. One more.
On that Puka note, I would probably try to trade him if you can figure out when Cooper Kupp is 2 weeks away, then trade Puka. Because I don't think you want to trade him the week before Cooper Kupp comes back, because then people will know what you're doing, trying to bank on Kupp. But if you trade him 2 weeks before he is coming back, you still got to kind of take a bye week on Cooper Kupp, and then he comes back. But I think that's when Puka's value will be peak, assuming he continues to do what he does right now.
Colin, last question, or kind of a statement. He's asking what we think here. I traded Waddle, A.J. Brown, and Saquon for Mixon, Josh Jacobs, and Devontae Adams. I'll do it one more time. Traded Waddle, A.J. Brown, and Saquon. That's a lot. For Mixon, Josh Jacobs, and Devontae Adams, who won. Nick, I'll let you go first.
Yeah, I think it's a little bit even. Saquon obviously had the injury, so Waddle, AJ Brown, Saquon. Waddle and AJ Brown have kind of disappointed so far this year, but again, I mean, we're 2 weeks in. It's very hard to say 2 weeks in,
right? And
so you flip and you get Devontae Adams, you get Jacobs. I don't love that. I don't love having two players on the same team, because you're kind of in a situation where, a lot of times they both eat on the same day, but I never love to have the same player in that situation. But I do think that Jacobs and Mixon are both good running backs, and you're going to probably be better set at that position. And then Devontae is fine, and you can go out and find other wide receivers. So I like it for the better running backs, getting Jacobs and Mixon. Because like I said, Devontae's going to get his. And Waddle and Brown are both going to figure it out for themselves. Who was the running back? Oh, Saquon. And Saquon's injured. Yeah. So,
but it should only be 2 weeks. I mean, Dayball, he's not playing Thursday, but Dayball even said, I'm not going to rule him out.
Yeah, I like being a little bit sturdier at running back, though, than at wide receiver. Wide receiver, you can play around with those guys and kind of bank on some different guys at different times. And you can always trade Devontae away, too, still, and go get another lesser wide receiver and probably another player. Because sure. Devontae, to me, is still a top 5 wide receiver. Yeah. Whereas those other two guys are borderline top 10.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think I would make that trade. I think Mixon will bounce back. I have him. I think he's going to be okay. I think Cincinnati's offense, I mean, T. Higgins had a pretty good week last week, but everybody else has been pretty quiet.
You're looking at all those teams, too. It's just like you don't know. I mean, everyone was playing overreaction after week 1 with Buffalo, and that's why I said on the show going into week 2, even laying a big number, I was like, hey, Buffalo's going to win this game by, it's on the show, Buffalo's going to win this game by more than 10.
Right.
And, they won, 31 to 10 or something like that. They won 3 touchdowns.
Josh finally went off and played like Josh Allen's supposed to.
Those teams, again, when you look at fantasy, when you look at betting in general, there's a reason that those numbers are big. There's a reason a team like Jacksonville, who's improving, has a big number at home against a shitty Houston team, is don't be scared off by that. The good teams are going to figure it out, even the teams that are 0-2. The good teams have good coaching. They've been to a Super Bowl before, like the Bengals. They'll figure it out. They'll find a way to get it done. And so you just trust in those guys, like an A.J. Brown, a Waddle, Devontae Adams, a Mixon. They've been there before. Barring injuries, they will have good weeks and they will turn it around. The guys that are question marks are, these new rookies or guys on a little bit shakier offenses, like a Najee Harris, who's, on a quote unquote good team with a really good defense, but the quarterback is absolutely atrocious, and so they can't install a run game at all, like those are the guys you want to be worried about.
Yeah, week 3 is not the time to worry about fantasy.
Yeah, don't overreact.
Don't overreact.
Make overreactions in week 6.
Get your value figured out. I mean, if you can flip guys, like you said, if you don't need Kyren Williams, if you don't need Puka Nacua, guys like that, get your value if you really don't trust in them. But it's not time to freak out and sell guys like Jamar Chase. Those are, people like that.
Those are fine guys to start, but yeah, if you have like Puka Nacua like sitting on your bench because you have Tyreek Hill and Devontae Adams or whoever you have in your starting lineup, like play that and use that as trade value right now while it's high. That is something I will say. Like, if those types of guys, if Kyren Williams or Puka Nacua are just sitting on your bench because you picked them up on waivers, like go ahead and trade them now and get the value.
Yeah, agreed. All right, I wasn't going to read any more, but one more. This is I got to tell this guy to take this trade. Trade Garrett Wilson and Oh, sorry, never mind. I apologize. I thought you were trading Garrett Wilson for Kyren Williams and Jamar. So he's going to give up Garrett Wilson and Kyren Williams for Jamar. I thought the opposite. I thought you were giving up Wilson for both of those two guys. I would have said do it. I think I would kind of hang on to Kyren and Garrett Wilson.
I'd probably do it because, again, same thing we've been saying about Kyren the entire time. And then as far as Garrett Wilson goes, aside from the one play that he had for the touchdown, the big 60, 70-yard touchdown this past week, like I do not trust Zach Wilson at all. I
agree with you.
Joe Burrow, the guy that's been in the Super Bowl before, to figure it out with his number one wide receiver over a guy that is shaky at best. And even if they make a quarterback change, like Garrett Wilson's value this year, unfortunately, is plummeting.
Yep. That's the thing is, are the Jets going to replace Wilson? I don't think they can lose this season this early. So if he does continue to struggle, I know he won week 1, but that was just a very sloppy game. They need to try to get some veteran in there, and they might not. They might let Wilson do it. They have a great defense, though, and decent guys on offense besides Rodgers when he was there. So they need to give themselves a shot. And if it doesn't work out this season and they think Zach Wilson's the guy, they're gonna wear that. But I think they'll try to get some veteran to come in at some point to help them because honestly, they're built everywhere else on that team except quarterback right now.
Yeah, and the point I'll make there on that is like even if they do go out and get a veteran quarterback, like he's still got to learn that offense. It's still going to take a few weeks for him to figure it out. Whether that's a Carson Wentz or that's a Nick Foles, maybe they make a trade for like a Jameis Winston, like. Any guy that comes into that offense, it's still going to take them a few weeks to get up to speed on the playbook. And so Garrett Wilson's value is, in my mind, only going to go down from here. So I would definitely try to trade him while you can, before we get into any, craziness with the Jets, really losing the game, because I don't count the game that they just lost in Dallas. Dallas is such a good team.
Yep.
And one of the hardest environments to play in. And that team just, on both sides of the ball, looks so good, from their defensive side of the ball and Micah Parsons creating turnovers to the offensive side of the ball. While they didn't do anything flashy, they controlled the game, they controlled the pace, and they got points on the board when they needed to, even though they didn't score a lot of touchdowns. So I don't really count that game for Zach Wilson, even though it was his first start here in Dallas this past week. But I do think that the team, barring whatever they say on social media or in the media or at practice, like Zach Wilson is not that guy. Like
ESPN
Zach Wilson
brought up an interesting person to replace him, and it's speculation, but with Minnesota 0-2, I don't know Kirk's contract situation, but Kirk Cousins could be a really interesting trade piece. I don't think Minnesota, they're also not trying to like just ruin their season already. So I don't think they'll do it, but that would actually be pretty sick to see Kirk.
Well, that was a situation where I was surprised that Minnesota didn't make more of a play on Trey Lance from San Francisco, because Kirk Cousins is in the last year of his contract and he probably will not re-sign with Minnesota. And so to me, that made a lot of sense. Now, I don't know what kind of no trade clauses Kirk Cousins has or if he has any of those, but like I don't think Kirk Cousins is really a New York quarterback by any means. If you're looking at the lifestyle and the pickup and change of pace, I think from what we saw in quarterback, that he's a family guy. I think they like Minnesota,
but he's also a competitor, and that team is ready to win.
And that's something that too. Maybe they do make that move, but I definitely think that Kirk is more of a cemented Minnesota guy than say a guy like Jameis who isn't starting right now, or a guy like I don't know. I don't know how much of a reach like Carson Wentz would be.
Oh, it'd be so bad.
Like, yeah, I know he's
would be
bad, but
yeah.
listen though, he's bad because he was injured most of his career. Like, he's made out of tissue paper.
He's had
like
a lot of opportunities, man. I mean,
he has had a lot of
everywhere.
opportunity. He has had a lot of opportunities. He had the opportunity, in Indy, and then he had the opportunity in Washington. But I don't believe that either of those teams are really ready to make that big jump like New York is, where they have the defensive side of the ball and the offensive side of the ball lined up. Like, when Carson was in Washington, like, O-line, skills positions weren't great. Same thing kind of in Indy. He never really had a real wide receiver. So you give him these weapons and, like, he's healthy. Like, I don't know. I don't know if it's something, you would want to give a fourth chance on. I think that's why there's probably a reason guys like Carson Wentz, guys like Leonard Fournette aren't signed to teams right now because, for whatever reason, like, clearly all the teams are seeing something that we don't see. And
right.
Otherwise, they would be on a team. So if they're a free agent, there's probably a reason for it. But nonetheless, I think it's still an interesting to think about.
For sure. Yeah, I think the Jets quarterback stuff's going to be interesting. We'll see how long the Zach Wilson experiment goes. If they keep winning and they're winning by 3 points and they're winning 15-12, who cares? Their defense will do it. But I agree with you. I think they'll try to replace him. You guys are welcome to get involved all season long from the50.com, from the50.com. We have the phone lines open consistently. We also have our Sunday live show, 10:30 a.m. CT, all the way up until kickoff. Also, Big Web and I do Weber Wednesdays, which we host every Wednesday night. Live on TikTok, live on YouTube, and also the recorded stuff will be everywhere on YouTube and also on our podcast feed. You can find it from the50.com, from the 50.com. I think Nick Yale dropped, so we're going to go ahead and wrap this one up. This has been Fantasy Chat, everybody. Appreciate all the comments and everything else. Please hit the follow button if you have not followed already. We'll be live again next Tuesday. See you for Weber Wednesday tomorrow night from the50.com. Follow everywhere. Appreciate it. Have a great night. Talk to you soon.